Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Alex World. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you guys are taking good care of yourselves. Now today's video is not gonna be a reaction video. Um I recently just watched Juice WRLD documentary Into the Abyss. And before we move any further into this video, more into the topic of the documentary, it's gonna be my review, my thoughts over it, and what I thought about it, etc, etc. You get me. Before you do, please do like, subscribe to the channel, make sure notification. The most important things on this channel, guys, it's free, it takes less than 10 seconds. Appreciate you. Yeah. So, I watched the documentary a couple hours ago, and yeah, it didn't really feel like, although I had like a video uploaded today at 1:30, although that I didn't record today, except for this. So this is gonna be my honest review on the documentary Into the Abyss by Juice WRLD. Well, not by Juice WRLD, but like of Juice WRLD. And firstly, if you are deciding to go watch it or even check it out, um, it's very dark. Yeah, it's a very dark documentary, but I think that's what makes it key because of its discovering, it's showing the vicious cycle of what Juice WRLD was going through, as an artist, but as a human person as well. Him, like, for all we knew before, was just like his addiction, putting it out there in his music. Unreleased songs, release songs. That's the only thing we got. But, we never got anything actually truly behind the scenes, except from like his tweets and etc. But now that this documentary was like full on raw, although that apparently Ali did sign some NDAs about some things not being included, which makes total sense um about it. Um where do I start? Where do I start? This is probably gonna be a really long video, so bear in mind with me. A lot of emotions are running, even just making this video, recording this video about it. So yeah. At the very beginning when I first started watching it, it was very hype, very like, oh yeah, you guys see him in concerts, etc., him talking. You see him taking drugs, okay, you know, lifestyle, right? But then you start to soon realize into the documentary that it's way worse than it seems. And you used to see it turning into a darker and darker and darker story until the very end. And it hits you quite early, to be quite honest. Um, like at first you're feeling happy, you seeing him, all that, but then you just see him doing all these drugs. The people he's around with also doing drugs, A lot, well, I think all of them were like more and more or less into like drugs, doing drugs a lot. Um, as someone that's somewhat's gone through it, something like that, but not too deep, thankfully. Um, well, deep, but like it wasn't too severe, if you understand. Um, it's painful to watch, and I could imagine for those people who are going through those same situations or in that same situation of taking drugs, etc. Um, can feel the same pain or feel the same emotions that Juice felt when they recorded, and I think the most the thing that they kept it real, and Juice wanted them to wanted everyone to see like the truth about it, like how dark it is. I think this will give a lot of information to people who don't know it or didn't know what Juice was going through, or people that are similarly going through, like can get a grasp on the situation. Um, Very powerful documentary too, in the sense that it really gets you in your emotions. And there were a couple of times, quite a few times, that I did cry, and also that I had to stop watching it just for a quick minute or a minute or so, or if I take a 10-minute break. I actually had to stop because the amount of emotions you feel in this segment is absurd. And it's almost like, you don't know the person, but at the same time when you listen to the person's music, or music, the lyrics speak to you, you have that connection. And crazy. And I think it's amazing how he felt like, he didn't feel embarrassed about sharing his emotions, sharing his, secret, not secrets, but like, um his problems he's going through. I think it is very brave for him to be able to, like, brave for him and brave to any artist, any people who are able to speak up and not feel embarrassed about what they're going through. Depression, anxiety, um, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all those things. Being able to man up and say, yes, like, I'm going through this. I have this problem. But the one thing that we all know is just like the group he is with, like, these people are going through, that they do drugs too a lot, and they're like with him. And I think a lot of people will find out or understand or see in this documentary is that, there could have been so many ways to intervene to stop him. Um, Seeing or hearing that, um, that Chris, and was it Juice's cousin, I think, maybe. I have a shitty memory, but um, you know, try to lessen them out without telling him, you know, amount of like oxycodone, etc., or lean, you know, and this scene that was difficult, because Juice was in the cycle very, very early on. Like, I think it was before high school or during his high school that he was into drugs, taking drugs, etc. And then, like, over time it built up. Um, yeah, and obviously from then on it started getting worse and like started building up more, started taking more consistently, etc., etc. And it gets to the point where your body is not able to function like properly. It's almost as if, you know, you him being high was him being normal for us, sober for us, and him being sober was the equivalent of us being drunk. That's how it is, how it was for him, because his body is so used to the thrill, or so used to in those emotions from taking drugs. And you kind of see the dark side of it. Like, it's fun once you start it, but then at the end of it, it's not, and you start to become scary, because you can see him taking it, snorting it, taking five at once. That one scene where, like, he went up to the camera to Chris Longfellow's and opened his mouth, and I was looking at five pills in his mouth. And it kills you. It really does kill you, you know? It's seeing that someone as young as him, with so much talent and potential, and um like Ski said, it's like falling into the rabbit hole deeper and deeper. And he talked about how, like, drugs and depression, and then him with drugs and depression led to further into drugs and depression, and led into further and further the rabbit hole. That's literally how he described it. And, like, also, as he said, it's like a vicious cycle. It literally is. Juice was living in a vicious cycle of, depressions and drugs, anxiety, and all that, and not having that. I don't want to seem like rude or anything. Like, you just seem to have that right support group, but we would never know that, because I would like to hope to think that they tried their best, to intervene, try to talk to them. But people are saying that they never did that. I believe that they did, but at the same time, I understand the community's wariness, and that, they could have done more. They could have done way more. And I agree with that. I agree with that statement fully. But one thing you gotta know is that at the end of the day, you could try as much as interventions you can or want to do. It all ends up to the person that wants to do it, wants to commit to it. And when I found out or saw that tweet by Chris Longfilms talking about how Juice was meant to go to rehab like in 2 weeks after his birthday, I think it was, um, before his birthday, so before or after his birthday, they went to rehab. But then he explained it, saying like he was going there to take less amounts, not stop, and he made it clear to the group. And that's crazy because when you're meant to go to rehab, you're technically trying to stop your addiction. You're trying to learn the healthiest way or the most controlled way to stop your dependence over a certain thing. But hearing that Juice didn't want to give up or couldn't showed how deep he was in, like how stuck he was. And the only way he could communicate that was through his music, you know? And when you're making music, people wouldn't think about it, the group wouldn't think about it, something suspicious, are you okay, because you listen to the music. And in each song of his is very dark, very deep, very, there's satanic, but also there's very deep emotional songs that he had that explained where he feel. And it's crazy to think, like, even listening to Dark Place, if I heard that in a studio session, I would be extremely concerned. And as a producer, or as a mixer, anyone, I would be extremely concerned if they hear that. That's the thing. I think a lot of people took his value as like a music and never really took. Some people didn't really take the realism of his lyrics properly. But those who could resonate or really look into the lyrics realize how deep and how much it's like screaming out for help. And yeah, there's some really nice scenes too, really funny ones, happy ones there. Um, but like seeing him so high, like in that scene where he's on the plane with Ali watching a movie on his iPad or something like that, but then falling asleep on him, and he's just talking to Chris Longfilms, and he's high off his head, and he's just like staring at the camera, talking, and then he goes, and that, that breaks your heart, breaks your soul to see that happening with a person. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed or saw, like, that Australian clip where he was in performing and he seemed like throwing up and not looking too good. And I think at that point, like, you could see the start of, like, his body was not feeling well at all. His body was not corresponding well. Like, I think all the, here's what I thought, about, his seizure. I don't think it was just like spontaneous. I think it was built up. Um, to be honest, like since saw that clip when he was in Australia and like throwing up and etc. I um uh I think that's for the point where like the amount of drugs usage he was taking was like finally getting to his like organs. Like he's like almost slowly shutting down. And I think at that point when we found out he passed away was the day where like his body could not comprehend what he took again, and yeah, caused it to just break, and that scene, the last like moments with Juice WRLD, like scene where they all interviewed and talked about it and their own views and like how they saw it happen in front of them, it really killed me. It really broke me down because first of all, Ali Lottie had to watch her fiance or boyfriend die in her arms right in front of her. Secondly, the entourage people didn't know what to do because they thought it was a normal seizure. And it was then until they saw the blood coming out of his mouth, his nose, that, this wasn't just a seizure. This was more. Like, this was bad. And Also, the fact I know a lot of people don't like the Kid Leroy. I don't know why. Um, just a bit of info. I don't get um no the Kid Leroy was young when he was with him. He was like under his wing, and imagine being under the wing of like this person that took you in. Imagine being there, and right in front of you, your mentor is having a seizure. But not only that, he's bleeding from his mouth, from his nose, everywhere. You would be scared. Like that is burned into his mind. And I know a lot of people find it really suspicious about how, like, how long it took them to release it or talk about it. I don't know. I think it's on one side I understand the fans, like, thoughts about that. On the other hand, you have to understand the privacy of people and being able to talk about it when they feel comfortable, not forcing it, you know? Um, but it's sad to see that, the people around Juice weren't that great as well. They didn't really help him as well. Like, in terms of just, like, taking drugs, etc., etc., They would do it with him, until they realized at the end, like, it was this bad. Until they, like, listened to the song, it was right in our faces. Like Vivi said, when he was asked, do you think Juice wanted to die? And when Bibi said, yeah, I think like something like when he said 20 songs or something, 30, I think he wanted to. And it's crazy to hear that. That's like a slap in your face because that's telling you also that Juice felt lost, felt paralyzed, felt helpless, felt useless, you know, and it felt so hard for him to even be, able to be grounded down to this earth that, he felt like he wanted to die, and I don't think no one ever wants to hear that. But I think Juice was like his pain, like he was going through in his mindset, he was going through was just unfathomable for him, like uncomprehendable, uncom- uncomprehendable for him to deal with it or to even, you know, fight it because I think it was so tough for him, especially such an early age on. It's gonna be tough. And I thought that was a really powerful ending or like moment to speak about and to get to see the views of different people on the exactly on the flight to hear that, like G Money, how the kid always spoke about how he tapped G Money before the seizure happened. It that almost tells you that, you know I think Juice knew. I think he knew at a point that he knew he was gonna die. I think he knew that something was gonna happen to him. But at the same time, like Cole Bennett said, that's the world you enter when you're like on drugs and everything. You like, you know, you know what's gonna happen, but you never know. Like you know what the consequences are, but you never know when it's gonna happen. You know, you you just don't know. Like if it could happen the next day, you die, or in a month's time, a year's time. You don't know when it's gonna hit you, and I think Juice didn't know that too. But I think he knew it was gonna happen to him. He was very aware of it. But I think that's why he used his music as a place to put all his feelings down, everything, so freely, so amazingly, and especially like being able to freestyle so easily. It's incredible for such a young age. And if he was still here, he would definitely excel, I think. But it's very hard to watch a lot of it. The seeing Juice nodding off and like high off his head, it kills you because it shows the dark side of it. Like, even people that don't know addictions that well, or the severity of it, or the severity of what Juice is going through, and being able to have that picture right in front of you. Not just like it wasn't just a documentary with footage showing him like concerts, etc., a couple of flights, etc. No, this was a footage of his life fully. Like he fully wanted this put on for the world to see, to understand, and that's crazy. Um, it really did hurt, you know. A lot of scenes really hurt your heart to watch a talented person succumb or to for the death of drugs, you know. And the thing is, people would say he was a junkie, etc., etc. Again, it's a two-way conversation. But with the amount he's taking, you know, it could be classified as a junkie, but also it's also as a like he's an addict towards drugs. But the reason why behind it is because he wanted to escape those negative feelings, those those anxiety, those fear, depression. He wanted to escape those, and drugs were the only way for him to let his mind go. And you know, I shouldn't forget like the feeling that Trippie Redd and Ski must have been feeling when they heard that, you know, they lost another brother of theirs. You know, they lost X and then they lost Juice. Like, can you imagine the emotions you have to go through to repeat the same process again? It's I think it was a very well done documentary. Well, no. Um, very saddening, very hard to watch if you are going to look into it. But I think you will understand the depthness of, you know, the issue stems, and like, you know, how other people might feel or going through something similar like this, you know. But what amazes me to see is that he was always there for his fans. He was always, you know, he felt loved by his fans, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, that he felt whole with his fans and being able to help people. And like Cole said, you know, somewhere down the line, people are gonna listen to a song by Juice WRLD. You know, music will always live on, always will. But with a range of emotions, very hard to watch. Beautiful documentary though. It didn't hide anything. Showed like the ugly truth of it, the downfall of it, and it was crazy to see the amount of toxins and drugs in his body in that examination when they looked at what was in his body. It was crazy to see how much was packed into that body, how much he was taking, you know. But it is a serious issue, you know. Make sure if you're going through something like this or know someone going through, support them the best you can, you know. And the thing is, another thing I want to mention is the fact like the police, etc. When Juice was having a seizure, how like, you know, the police were just standing there watching, and you know, a lot of people said they could have done more, and you know, they should have. The moment they saw blood, they should have. I know they were administered the drug to help try to save him from an overdose, but I think at that point when blood was coming out of his mouth or out of his body, that's a bit late. And normally when someone's having a seizure, you want to try and make them as much comfortable, not as like cramped in, not make them claustrophobic. Make sure, you know, they're not gonna harm themselves in that moment. But obviously, ambulance should be there prior, even before. Like if the minute it happened, they should have called ambulance. Should have been there, you know, not like waiting and saying like it's fine, it's fine. Clearly, it's not fine when they're watching their friend die, like bleeding from their mouth. And I can't imagine the amount of pain that, you know, the mother had felt when they got the call, or his cousin or something, was called the mother and saying like, Jared's in hospital. He had a seizure. And then later on we found out to know that he passed away. The slight different timing, slight change of the timing could have made a big difference. But then again, you know, it would have happened in the past, like in the future, or something like. But I think that would have, if that happened, like he was saved, or like they were able to contain it, I think it would have been a big learning curve for him, a very big change for him, to realize, that was the brink of death. But a lot of his songs notified like he knew he was gonna die, and he's gonna die by drugs. Like the song "Confide," very scary, very like pinpoint on the description of the way his death went. A lot of songs depicted that. Um, but yeah, I think it's a good way because some people got some closure off it. But being able to see the life of Juice, being in the shoes of it, being able to understand, being able to see the rawness, the even the amount of drugs being taken. But yeah, it must have been crazy for those people to have to watch the brother-in-law to pass right in front of them, or have that moment. And the fact that Ali heard him scream her name, before going into the seizure and trying to snap him out, it hurts. It hurts to hear that. It hurts to hear that. I cried at that part because if I put myself in that position where, your loved one shouts your name and then falls on the ground unconscious, what do you do? You're freaking out, You're freaking out. And the fact that he knew something was up was even more crazy. But, yeah. And the fact that, seeing like, even Rory was about to cry. I think he was like about to cry because you could tell like his expressions changed so fast when he spoke about it, like the blood, the passing of him. It hurts. It's crazy to see like someone so young to have to witness their own mentor die in front of them. But it's worth a watch. It's very deep, and if you need to take a break when you watch it, take a break. Like honestly, because if you watch it all in one go, like what I did, like at the beginning, it's an overload of emotions you're gonna go through, and you're gonna be so drained after watching it. Because you can see the slight declining of him throughout the documentary. You could see the points where his body was starting to refuse, starting to work properly. You start to see how, like, he's like this, nodding off. The sadness in his voice, his body language. Well, what an artist, man. What an artist. And I hope they put out like a deluxe album of Fighty Demons, and then obviously we're gonna get Party Never Ends 2. And we got loads of songs left for him, by him. But I really enjoyed it though. Despite him going through a range of emotions, I really enjoyed it. I think you should watch it if you want to know or want to see the more personal side of Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD was a kid, He enjoyed the shit. He loved to do life, live life to his fullest, Not to be a kid. But unfortunately, like with everything going on, having to deal with everything else, he didn't, like, Juice WRLD had everything he wanted, He had, like, everything sort of music, etc. But the one thing he lacked was being able to have time to able to focus on himself, or being able to have people surrounding him that could help him with those issues. And a lot of people here will say, "Oh, wait, he's rich. He could have bought things, etc. He could buy money, anything." Yes, but what is money gonna do? Like, even if you're, let me just take it like this. I know someone else said this, but I think it was I'm Don't said this in one of his reactions to the fighting deals. He said, if you're not even happy when you're broke, then how are you gonna be happy when you have money in it? You know? And the thing is, Juice was smart. No cap. Juice was smart. You know, the way he was able to break down things, being able to like speak about things wisely, or like even just mention it. He was wise as a person that young. He knew money was never going to be the answer for everything. He knew money was going to bring him more problems, you know, and it did. And he admitted it, you know. Money doesn't fix everything. It's a good moment to have money, but it will never fix everything permanently, you know. And people in the internet are saying, "Oh, you have more money, you should be happy," etc., etc. Stop being an asshole, you know. They are just as human as we are. Some of them aren't. Some of them are like you're doing for attention. Some are humans and like us. We go through the same thing. They go through the same thing. But very well done. Very beautiful. Very powerful. Very deep. Definitely recommend watching it. Very hard to watch, but take some time. Space it out if you wanna breathe or take a break. Do that. But it's worth a watch. I think it's on HBO Max, where you can find some people on Reddit, Juice WRLD, or sharing some links, or areas where you can watch it. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for joining this reaction. And, you know, let me know what your thoughts about the video, of the documentary if you watched it. Let me know. Write it down. I want to read it. I might put a comment down there. I'll explain more my thoughts on it. But I appreciate you for joining me. Sorry, this is like a 30-minute video. But I appreciate you. You guys are truly the best. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace out. Take care.